Hello, everybody. Welcome to Talk About House. I'm Todd.
I'm Juana.
Okay, we have a great episode for you today. We have a bunch of topics we're going to talk about because the economic growth numbers just came out. When we have some data with how this is going to affect housing going forward. Okay, but before we get into this, we have an awesome video that's going to be coming out tomorrow. It will probably be the best one in the 1,200 plus we've ever done. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe to the channel, and then you can watch our Sunday video tomorrow. And if you hate it, you can unsubscribe. But I promise you it'll be the best video I've ever seen. It'll be super fun.
Okay, can you tell me more about this? Because we haven't done the video and I'm clueless.
We have two special guests that are going to be joining us. Okay,
two
very famous. We have very famous special guests. Matter of fact, I guarantee you will recognize both of them. I don't care who you are, you'll recognize them.
Okay, if you have a clue, then please leave me a comment and give me a clue.
She doesn't know yet.
Because I have no idea what he's talking about.
We have very special guests that will join us. Okay,
Bring it on.
Here's the first one. U.S. economic growth accelerated to strong 4.9% rates last quarter as consumers shrugged off Fed hikes. Juana.
I actually know more about this than about the guests.
Okay, obviously, right before a housing crash,
yes,
the economy starts improving. Explain how that works.
It doesn't.
It doesn't work. We've been waiting for years for the housing crash.
Okay, I take that back. It does. I mean, in the greater scheme of things, yes, because you have the cyclical nature of things. Okay, in the greater scheme of things, yes. But no, I mean, if the economy is improving, then chances are that housing will remain strong. Housing is sort of strong, right? I mean, prices are either stable or improving. People are still buying homes. However, the number of transactions is down. Why is the number of transactions down? Low inventory.
Period. End of story. Has nothing to do with interest rates.
Right.
Okay.
Or the economy. Here's
the first quote. The Commerce Department said the economy expanded last quarter at the fastest pace in nearly 2 years and more than twice the 2.1% annual rate of the previous quarter. It's literally doubled. The economy has improved by 2x is a rate of growth over the... A lot of people didn't expect. This was like highly shocked when the numbers came through. We've got housing numbers that'll go into this. It'll help explain this too.
So two things. One, we acknowledge that this number will be revised. It won't be revised by enough to make a difference. And two, to me, these are still echoes of COVID. And if you're saying, what? COVID is so last year, or the year before, or the year before that. What I mean by that is people still have this emotional need to live and to be happy to be alive. And we know that because people are spending money on all kinds of things. We were looking at people spending, I think it was $1,500 on average to go see Taylor Swift and $1,800 on average to go see Beyonce. And this is not just ticket prices. This is the money between travel expenses, hotel, food, and the ticket prices. But that's a lot of money to see these lovely ladies. So people are still spending money on experiences, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay, here is the chart that goes into detail. This goes all the way back to 2019. U.S. economy surges in the third quarter. There's all the stuff up there. Now, this is quarterly growth. The percentage is annualized. So they basically take the quarter growth, multiply times 4, and that's the annual growth rate. It's effectively what they do, okay? And it is seasonally adjusted. So the economy may supposed to grow at 1.3%, but it grew at 1.2%, but then they annualize the number. They don't. So it has a slight adjustment. New homes and resale homes actually do the same. We're going to talk about that in a second because that's the next thing we're talking about. Okay, so as you can see here, if you go all the way left, 2019 was going along. This was the first time we were supposed to have the housing crash that never happened. The Cash Bro, most of Crash Bros have deleted those videos. They're all gone now, but there's some still out there. Okay.
Well, wait. We were supposed to have the housing crash back in 2011, 12, and 13 because of the wave of foreclosures that were coming and never arrived.
Shadow inventory.
Yes.
Shadow inventory. We've got the video. We actually did a video where we made fun of the people talking about the housing crash of 2013 that never happened. Okay. So if you look at this, you can see that the big downturn we had that was no kidding recession. There's 2020 recession because of lockdowns. And then the economy magically just rebounded. Now, It rebounded because all of the people who weren't working magically all went back to work. Like everyone just went back to work. Now, that did nothing to housing. You would have thought, oh my gosh, the job losses, the housing market crash was coming. That massive amount of negative growth did zero. Matter of fact, what did home prices do from 2020 to 2021?
They went up.
They blasted up, okay?
Right.
Now you can see the growth. We did have that one recession. It was technically a recession, 2022, but it was the weakest recession ever, and this is why. When they measure recession, they measure 2 consecutive quarters, okay? But when they actually went back and looked at each month, that first quarter of 2022, January and February were positive. It was just March was negative. It was negative enough to pull the other two down because they were really like 0.1, 0.2% growth. And then the second March was like 0.4% growth. So it was a negative. And then the third quarter or second quarter was the same thing. April was the only negative month. So they went back and saw 2 quarters of consecutive growth that basically
consecutive
negative growth that wasn't the whole quarter. It was only 2 months. So when they go back and after a recession, they go back and pick out the exact, and they tell you exactly how many months it lasted. It didn't last long enough. And there were jobs were created both those quarters. So the administration said, yeah, I mean, technically it's a recession, but we're not going to call it a recession. So we really haven't had the recession. And then you can see there the massive change. Now, okay. So now here's the interesting thing. Talk about interest rates.
They're up.
You would think the Fed, I know they're up. You would think the Fed is now going to get serious because the economy is tearing, that they're going to raise rates. They meet in a week,
right?
Beginning of November. They're going to just raise the rates to choke off the economy.
I'm less than convinced that they're going to raise rates. I think that there will be a robust discussion about it behind closed doors. But I think the optimistic heads will prevail, and I don't think that they're going to do anything about the rates. I think that, look, the slowness of the Fed coming to the party as far as raising rates when, at the beginning of all of this, I think that they learned something from that, which is to watch numbers and act carefully and not underact or overreact. And I think right now they're just really taking a more wait and see attitude. I think particularly as they see maybe some indicators of the economy slowing down in the first quarter. And I think they're going to let that play out and see where that gets us. I think that's the approach that they're going to take. Let me know in the comments what approach you think that the Fed will take when they meet. But I think that's what's going to happen. I don't think they're going to do anything. Not that there won't be a strong contingent that would like to raise interest rate, because I think there is. But I think that the optimistic Fed chairs are going to prevail in that discussion.
Before people get all excited about median rates right now are now 7.5%, according to Freddie Mac. Before people get all super excited, median rates in the 80s were anywhere from 10.5% to 18%. They were literally extremely high, and home prices went up probably 50% from 80 to 90.
Right.
Okay. So there's this idea that anything over 4% home prices are going to crash is completely ridiculous. Okay, Juana, this is something you actually talked about. That this was in a report for why the economy is doing so well, and why housing is doing well given the interest rates. Okay. A range of factors have helped fuel consumer spending, which accounts for the bulk of the economy's growth, like 70% of it. Though many Americans are still feeling under pressure from 2 years of high inflation, average pay has outpaced price increases and enhanced people's ability to spend. Juana, if rents went up faster than wages, people would just refuse to pay them, right?
Well, people have to live somewhere, so they may have to relocate to a home that they can afford. But I mean, people have to live somewhere. But
people have to always make one of two decisions: they either rent or they buy.
Right.
And people are still buying.
And my standard line is, you're going to be paying someone's mortgage. The question is, are you paying your own or your landlord's?
Right. Okay. Now, one of the reasons why housing actually contributed to this. You're like, wait, how could Todd, housing, it's terrible. It's 50% down. Sales are down. right? But here we go. New home sales soared last month as buyers swarmed the market before mortgage rates could rise even more. Want it? People were so excited. The rates last month averaged between 7.12 and 7.16%. They were so excited at those historically unbelievable low rates that they bought them far more homes than had been expected. Talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
What are they anticipating, maybe?
So smart people were expecting that the higher interest rates would dissuade more buyers from the marketplace, and they were right. They did dissuade buyers from the marketplace. However, we are in an environment where we have more buyers than we have homes, so homes did sell. Kind of to your point, there are a lot of home sales going on, not as many as we've had. The number of transactions is substantially down, and I'm not in any way saying that's not the case. But what we are seeing is we're seeing builders get more creative. Mm-hmm. So, for example, Pulte in their earnings call was talking about how they've got permanent buy downs for their qualified buyers on their brand new homes, something in the range of I think 5.5%. So they're doing it for the life of the loan. Now you're thinking, well, how can Pulte do that? Well, Pulte can do that in a couple ways. First of all, Pulte has money. Yeah. So there's one thing. The second part is, I'm sure that makes when they're financing that house themselves, they have more flexibility with that price. So that's part of it. The other part is that Pulte knows that interest rates are only going to be this high for a while longer, and then they'll come down. So then they'll be able to sell that paper, so it'll be fine. They also know people sell homes, refinance, whatever. So even though they're offering the buyer this 5.5% for 30 years fixed, they know that either that will make sense down the road, or they're not going to be holding that note, either because the buyer sells, refinances, or whatever, or because Pulte themselves will sell the note.
Exactly. Okay, here we go. Sales of new homes increased 12.3% to a seasonally adjusted, there's that word again, mm-hmm. rate of 759,000 units last month from the revised August rate of 676,000.
Okay, so this is annual, right? We're talking about the number of homes sold in the U.S. annually, not in that month.
Yeah, so they know how many, so it could have been 80,000 houses total for the whole country. And then they have a formula where they say if this rate of homes adjusted for how homes sell in different months happened every month, mm-hmm. it would be 759,000. They were expecting 676. According to the Census Bureau, this is Census Bureau data, that exceeded Bloomberg consensus expectation of 680,000 and was 33.9% above last year levels. Interest rates are higher mm-hmm. today. They were still in the high fives, low sixes last September. Over 1% lower, mm-hmm. but we still sold more homes.
Right.
That's completely counter to what the crash people are saying. And here's the new homes sold in the U.S. chart. Now, Juana, on this chart, where you see thousands of million homes sold, you can see the run up from 2000 to 2005. Mm-hmm. when home builders were going like crazy, building as fast as they could. Mm-hmm. That oversupply plus subprime loans caused the housing to crash. And what you see here is because of housing was tanking, builders were like, we're not building anymore. Mm-hmm. And you could see they got down to like 300,000 total homes built. Mm-hmm. That did not even cover household formations, immigration, destroyed, like it literally was massive underbuilding.
Right, so that underbuilding basically covered homes that are taken out of inventory because they are destroyed or otherwise uninhabitable, but really did not touch anything else.
If you look at this, we've underbuilt now for probably 14 years. Mm-hmm. 14 years of massive underbuilding. We need to build 1 million to 1.5 million homes a day.
A year.
A year for 7 years to get back to equilibrium between the number of, to compensate for household formations and immigration, right?
Right.
So you can see where we're going. Juana, where does this mean in 5 more years or 10 more years if we're only building 700,000 or 800,000 houses a year when we have 2 million plus household formations and 1 million immigrants every year?
So with an ongoing deficit that builds, kind of like our federal government's deficit, but we won't talk about that. What we're going to have is we're going to have a continued issue with supply and demand as far as housing. And when we have more demand than we have supply, then that almost guarantees that home values will continue to increase because they will be a scarce commodity that people want to buy.
Okay. As a matter of fact, housing is so hot right now. In New York City, they have taken the iconic and vacant Flatiron building, and they are turning its office space now. They're turning it into luxe condos. Luxe is a nouveau riche word for rich people, super rich people. Condos. If you don't know what it is, here's a picture of it. If you go down Broadway, if you're at Times Square and you just want to go for a walk straight down Broadway, and you'll start to see this building just before you get to Fifth Avenue. It's the corner of Fifth. It's like at 22nd Street. So it's maybe, 15 blocks south of, 16 blocks south of Times Square. It's a beautiful building. It's famous. It's part of the National Registry now because it was a lot nobody wanted because it was a weird space.
Right. So a couple things about the Flatiron building. First of all, it's about 120 years old, so it's a historical landmark. Second of all, it had previously been office space. It's been vacant for a couple years. It was owned by several different entities and individuals. They couldn't.
Didn't Helmsley own it?
At some point, maybe. I don't know. Not recently.
Well, no, of course not. Like 50 years ago.
Right. So, but most recently, when the building was shut down, the owners at the time couldn't quite get their act together about what to do with the building. Make a long story short, it was sold. There were a lot of fireworks over its sale. You can read articles about that. It's kind of interesting. But now what's going to happen to it is there is discussion about what to do with the building. They're in talks with partners how to bring the building back to life. Now, I had talked about previously several times this year about taking buildings like this that are previous office space and converting them to residential. So there is talk to do that. The other thing that they're considering is doing partly office space, partly residential. I think that's a possibility. I don't think that's where the money is. I think what they're going to do is they're going to do what we have here in Las Vegas with the Waldorf Astoria. I think they're going to do part of it as an ultra-luxury hotel and part of it as ultra-luxury residential. I think that would be the highest and best use of that building. I know that's going to cost a lot of money, but I think that that's going to be their best return on investment. Now, the beauty of that is that doing it that way will actually generate the most revenue for the owners, and bringing somebody like Waldorf Astoria in to run the hotel portion would add to the prestige of the building and, again, would add to the value. So if they're listening, that's my advice.
And they're currently doing, that's the current model. If you go to New York City and look at all the new residential buildings being built, roughly the bottom 2/3 are hotel. Mm-hmm. They're high-end hotels. And whether you stay there a night or a couple weeks, and then the top third is permanent residential.
Right.
So the concept here is that residential real estate's not dead. And especially like New York City, there are not houses sitting around. If you want a house, you got to get on a train and leave the city for the most part, right? You got to go really far north or really far east or west or south, but you can't just, there's nothing in the city it's all mostly high rise, okay? But the idea is that things change, the market reacts. It doesn't just give up and say, oh no, it can't. If interest rates go up, everyone, no one's going to buy, and prices have to drop because their monthly payment, who cares? We just talked about that. Wages are up. People are like, my wages are up, so I can afford more. And the other thing I want to mention, I think it's the exact thing. You would have to be completely ignorant to think rates will never, ever drop. They'll never drop. I guarantee you, there will be a time when rates drop. You go back over history, rates go up and down all the time. And we might have inflation. Rates may be a little higher, but I don't think that, I think interest rates the interest rate is baked into current home prices.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Now here's another example of, if the world is not static. Okay, remember we did this video about office space where we talked about all the vacant office space, and so here's an article that just popped up. It's super new. Exclusive Hex, which is a AI startup, adds to AI grab for San Francisco office space with new lease. They've already purchased leased property. Now, remember, San Francisco has 3 to 4 million empty square feet of office space.
Right. So, here's the thing about leased office space. It's in this weird place. I don't mean San Francisco. I mean just leased office space, particularly in California, is in this weird space where if you're entering into a lease today, you're getting a better deal than your neighbor next door who entered into a lease maybe 4 or 5 years ago. They're actually paying more for that than you're paying for yours because of the nature of leases, because it was more expensive to lease back then than it is now. So there's this weird cycle going on where you've got companies that maybe previously could never have afforded this space, but now they can because prices are down. And it'll be interesting to see what happens when the existing tenants go to renew their lease. Some of them will not renew as much space, but whatever that they renew, they may get a better deal on their lease. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
There's about 10 companies that are all AI companies. Because remember, all the big VC money right now is all going into AIs. Some of you know we invest in startups. I would say 70% of all startup deals that come across my desk involve AI in some form. They are an AI solution for something. And we did have an opportunity to invest in OpenAI, which we would decide to pass on because I thought valuation was too high and didn't like the terms. So there was an opportunity to invest in OpenAI. We also actually were personally invited to invest in Twitter/X. Long story, but I'll tell you about some other time. We happen to know one of the principals involved in that personally. Okay, but these 10 companies are looking for 1 million square feet. AI is very space intensive because you have to build these massive server farms. You have to have a lot of power. You have to have a building that can support the power. You just can't run out to some shopping center. So you're generally looking at buildings that can support this. And so they're going in and they want to be in San Francisco because that's where all the money is. So all of a sudden, it looks like AI companies who you wouldn't have even heard about an AI company a year or two ago. You were like, AI, is that even a thing? All of a sudden, these AI companies are out there purchasing up office space.
Right. So San Francisco's not dead after all.
It'll be interesting to see what happens. Remember, we got ridiculed in June of last year when we said the market will react to this and it will moderate, but it won't crash. And literally, people took clips of our videos and used them in their videos and said very unflattering things about us. And here we are. Literally, we're exactly right. The market never crashed 40 or 50%. I did see this one funny thing, though it was on X/Twitter, where somebody said, we never really meant home prices would fall. We meant the total number of sales. And I'm like, nah, you said prices. You said prices. You can't get out of it now. You never said transactions would be down 40 or 50%. So, yeah. Anyway,
is that it?
That is it.
Cool.
If you can guess, I'll give you one hint. Easily, both of the people that will be on the show tomorrow are more recognizable than Jerome Powell. Meaning, if Jerome Powell was with one of these two people would be like, wow, who is that dude with famous person standing next to them? No, this is serious. This is going to be fun.
Okay, so leave us comments. Tell us what he's talking about so that I can be privy to this too.
I can't tell her because she would spill the beans. She would tell everybody.
Yeah, I would blurt it out. Okay, so remember, leave us comments, particularly if they're real estate related. I would appreciate that. If you have guesses about the guests tomorrow, please give me hints about that because clearly he knows. Please remember to like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share the video. And definitely subscribe because you'll miss tomorrow.
Yeah, subscribe.
I have to subscribe now so I can figure out what tomorrow's about. And we'll see you on the next video. Bye.
Bye.